As arduous as the voyage to New York was, it paled in comparison to what Peter and I went through on our trip from Russia to Texas. We left our little village of Shlisselburg, a village founded by Peter the Great in 1702. In May 1894, it was heartbreaking to leave Mother. And I remember how she cried when Peter and I first presented my idea to move to the New World. But with time she came to accept it, for she knew that our chances of finding a good life were much better there. I had dreamed of a different life since I was a child, and had recurring dreams ever since I could remember, of living in a place of sand and surf, and of something else, something more profound, something involving fulfilling the essence of my very being. The latter was more of a feeling, a sense of perfected actuality and culmination. This dream, modest and feeling, which I experienced in many forms, never left me and just increased until the very day I arrived in Galveston. Under the poverty of the serf-style system, we all, Father, Peter, our oldest sibling Pavel, and me, toiled, working the soil to bring forth the very nourishment that kept us alive. We grew rye and oats and also attended to a few farm animals, a cow, some chickens, and some pigs. So we left in May, just as the weather started warming and the sun was just starting to thaw the permafrost that now had yielded the spouts of green. Father, Peter, and I loaded our trunks into the car, the bright sunshine pouring into the cold brisk air. The flat land upon which we sat our country village was filled with large deciduous trees that were budding their first spring foliage. While Father and I rode in one cart with the trunks and luggage, Mother, Peter, Karina, and the children rode in the other cart. By the time we reached the train station in St. Petersburg, our buttocks were quite sore from the bumps and dishes we traversed as we rode over the rough, jarring dirt roads. At the train station, we exchanged painful goodbyes and boarded the train. I sat by the window, the train whistling its last blast as I watched the tears flow down Mother's face. I felt a massive lump form in my throat, and I did my utmost to hold back my tears. As the train station crept forward, she hurled kisses out to us with her hand. My heart sank with sorrow at leaving Mother, but certain at the same time that Peter and I were doing the right thing, and that we were finding our rightful place in the universe. A 10-day trip led us to the port of Marseille, on the French coast. Along the way, we rode through Austria-Hungary, where the sight of the majestic Alps capped in pure white snow left us mesmerized. Never before had I seen such imposing natural wonders. From Austria-Hungary, we crossed the German Empire and entered the Black Forest, so appropriately named, as the sun began its descent into the western horizon. My mind now drifted back to the past. I recalled how much talk of revolution invaded the last 3 years of my life in Russia. It all seems so distant now, an almost forgotten memory, like the thick dark that was now engulfing the massive fir trees whirring past the train window before me. The next morning we were well into the French Republic, where we passed through countless fields and vineyards. At Marseille, we boarded the SS La Bourgogne to embark on an 8-day trip to New York. Before boarding, along with a multitude of steerage passengers, we filed past the medical officer who inspected us for disease. On board, the single men, as well as women, were directed to cabins where up to 6 to a bunk were boarded. Peter, Karina, and the children fared much better in a tiny yet private cabin afforded to families. The food was plain, yet tolerable. The purser did his best to ensure that attendance made our trip as tolerable as possible. Unfortunately, an outbreak of stomach virus and traversing some rough waters brought upon an inclement weather somewhere in the North Atlantic, left chamber pots overflowing and the stench of vomit heavy in the air. It was midday when we finally arrived in New York Harbor, where a dithering array of buildings spewed out from Manhattan Island. So massive were the number and size of the edifices that it seemed to me to be just a matter of time before the island would slip into the inky dark waters of the harbor below. Just opposite the city, we passed the Statue of Liberty perched on Bedloe's Island, her upright hand holding a torch, the beacon of hope to the tired, poor, huddled masses yearning to break free. Those very words seemed to be written expressively for us who were crammed in the steerage. After a brief stay, allowing for those arriving at their destinations to disembark and others to board, we were again on our way sailing south around Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico. I was virtually sleepless with anticipation the night before arriving in Galveston. I arose before dawn, quietly made my way to the upper deck, where I was greeted by the warm, humid air of the Texas Gulf. How different this was compared to cold, frigid Russia. Yet, even as out of my element I seemed to be, without hardly knowing any English, never was I more sure in my certitude that this was my destiny. I looked above and could see the smoke from the two hissing funnels blending seamlessly into the foggy air. Gazing east, I could now just make out the first glow of rays emerging from the black expanse at the horizon. The ship plowed onward, its wake clearly visible in the ocean water below. Looking around, I now saw that I was not alone, having been joined on deck by a handful of other early riders. A short time later, I saw it for the very first time. A jeweled city shrouded in a veil of fog, like an image from another world, hovering just above this level of the sea. I could see the light of the early morning sun sifting through the cupolas and steeples of this enchanting city, setting them aglow. I could see the trestle that stretched over the gulf at the city's midpoint, its supporting beams encased in the water's foamy splendor. It was a much smaller version of New York, but far more quaint and charming. I felt a vague sense of déjà vu that emanated from the recesses of my subconscious, as though perhaps the familiarity that lay before me was from a scene from one of my recurring dreams. Seeing the city for the first time, alight on an island of golden sand, the dawn's radiant sunshine reflecting on the smooth, lapping waves like hands enveloping the city's perimeter, secured my conviction to the very core that this was my rightful place in the universe, that this was the only place I could find true happiness, for this was the very place, the only place I would find her.